Kang Dynasty is out and Doomsday is in. In case you haven't been made aware yet, it's official with the announcement of Avengers Doomsday coming in May 2026. Avengers Kang Dynasty, originally planned for that date, is cancelled. Everyone was eager to know what was going to happen with Marvel's upcoming Avengers films after all the drama with their Kang actor, Jonathan Majors. To get us all on the same page, Jonathan Majors was caught up in some serious legal issues that led to him being dropped from the MCU and other projects. This created a big problem for Marvel since he was playing Kang the Conqueror, the next main villain. He already played the character in the Loki series and Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. In fact, Quantumania hinted that all variants of Kang in the universe were played by Majors, so you can see how that would cause an issue. People wanted to know if Marvel was going to recast the character since Kang seemed to be so central to so many upcoming projects, or if they were just going to scrap it all. We finally seem to have our answer. Kang is being replaced with another Marvel villain, Doctor Doom, played by Robert Downey Jr. The 2026 Avengers project that was supposed to be Kang Dynasty has swapped out its title for Doomsday, but fans are now left wondering how Kang's departure from the MCU will be explained in-universe. As stated, the character was supposed to be a big deal. Fans wonder if Kang will be brought into any future Marvel projects simply to give the character an ending, or if we are all collectively supposed to forget it happened, Peter Parker No Way Home style. A recent cryptic interview with Marvel's Kevin Feige has only caused more confusion. Screen Rant asked the Marvel president if Kang would still be a villain in an Avengers film, to which Feige responded, "I've done a number of interviews in the last couple days, and you're the first person to ask. I give you credit for just outright asking the question, and I'll give myself credit for trying to evade it and avoid it entirely." Now what does that mean? With the Doomsday announcement, I just assumed that if Kang is going to be in a movie, he would be mentioned only by name or something like that, just to close that chapter. But this interview has me questioning that assumption. Now it seems like Marvel might use Kang in the future. It also makes it sound like there is potential for Kang to not be a villain anymore, although Feige is known for giving cryptic responses and the MCU is incredibly secretive. Feige answering the question in any other way than what he did would be considered a spoiler, and we all know what lengths Marvel will go to prevent those. However, some think that all this Kang drama might actually be a good thing. Kang's last appearance was in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, and that movie did not do well. It is considered a flop. People criticize the story and the CGI, and most of all, Kang's involvement. Kang was able to be defeated by Ant-Man, his family, and a bunch of futuristic ants? Not to say that it wasn't hard and that Kang was easy to take down, but if a villain can be defeated by just one Avenger and a swarm of ants, why would the audience accept that the full Avengers team would ever struggle against him? This is Marvel fans' big criticism of the movie, that Kang's defeat by ants makes the character seem kind of ridiculous and not as threatening. Marvel might have seen all this criticism and taken that as a sign that Kang might not have been as good of an idea as they once thought. Currently, the movie is sitting at a 46% on Rotten Tomatoes, meaning it is unfortunately certified rotten. The audience score is drastically different at 82%. However, most reviews share a similar story. The film wasn't amazing, but it was fun. Generally, people agree that the plot was kind of all over the place, but the characters were portrayed well enough that if you don't have high expectations, you'll probably have a good time. Despite Kang being defeated in a questioning manner, people generally agreed that Jonathan Majors' portrayal of the character was the high point of the film. Since Ant-Man was Kang's movie debut, there is the possibility that Marvel will just let Kang be an Ant-Man villain, the same way that Whiplash is just an Iron Man villain. Still, some fans hope that Kang will be recast even if he is no longer the focal point of the next Avengers film. It would be nice to see the character get a proper ending in the timeline since he was built up so much. There is one pretty big roadblock in the way of a Kang recasting though. A rumor has been floating around that the reason Marvel replaced the villain and not the actor playing the villain is because Majors had a clause in his contract saying that he was the only actor that could play any and all versions of Kang. That would explain why all Kang variants in the Ant-Man scene were Majors and why Marvel switched to Doctor Doom when they could have easily gotten a different actor. They recast other roles in the past, like War Machine, and even done some more recent recasts with characters like Thunderbolt Ross in Brave New World. I wouldn't put it past Marvel to do something wild and maybe like find a loophole by making Doom a variant of Kang. I don't know how they would manage that impossible task, but when all bets are off, anything is possible with Marvel. The original timeline for the future Avengers films was Kang Dynasty, releasing in May of 2025, and Secret Wars in November of 2025. But then the writer's strike happened, and the Major's guilty verdict came along, and everything was pushed back by almost a year or more. This extra time might be a blessing in disguise, giving Marvel more time to sort out the plot for these future films, and more time to work on the CGI aspects. Recently, Marvel movies have been the victim of online trolling due to some underdeveloped or just strange CGI. It's also come out that Marvel isn't always the best company to work for. They have been accused by CGI and VFX artists of being overly demanding, tough to please, overworking employees, and just not paying enough. Hopefully the extra year and Jonathan Majors' departure hiccup will give Marvel the opportunity to allow VFX artists the room to create their best work for Doomsday. There have been a lot of negative things surrounding the future Avengers films, so it's time for some good news. It was announced at San Diego Comic-Con that the Russo brothers were set to direct both of the upcoming Avengers movies. They have directed 4 Marvel movies so far: Captain America: The Winter Soldier, Captain America: Civil War, Avengers: Infinity War, and Avengers: Endgame. So, some of Marvel's best movies. Having the Russos take on the next couple Avengers films is a really good sign and has fans breathing out a sigh of relief amidst so much uncertainty. There is probably a reason why Marvel chose to go with Doctor Doom as Kang's replacement. In the Secret Wars comics, Doom is a pretty major player, even bigger than Kang. The two villains actually once faced off against each other, and Kang was not the winner of that fight. It makes sense that the one capable of defeating Kang becomes his replacement. Marvel oftentimes doesn't adapt comics, just like takes the characters or a general story and modifies it for the big screen, sometimes even making something brand new. So when they originally announced Secret Wars, everyone assumed that Marvel was just gonna take inspiration from the 1984 and 2015 comics, but make Kang the focus, create a new storyline. Now that Kang is out, there is more potential for Marvel to stick to the source material should they want to. Something that I think Marvel might do to explain away Kang's disappearance is having Doom somehow mention he defeated every Kang. For the past few years, maybe he's been like moving across universes, destroying every Kang the Conqueror variant. This is inspired by the Kang/Doom match in Avengers Secret Wars comics that ended poorly for the Conqueror. If Doom was from another universe, it would also explain why he's being played by the same actor as Iron Man. Maybe Doom would have been attacking Kangs because they were one of the only beings powerful enough to defeat him. I don't know, but it would be a fun concept for the movie. There are lots of actors that could draw in audiences the same way that RDJ could. Marvel might not be doing too well right now, but it's still Marvel. They could get almost any actor out there. There is a reason why they must have casted RDJ, and I'm excited to see what it is. Will Avengers Secret Wars be Marvel's savior or final nail in their coffin? Things are not looking good for Marvel's Secret Wars. Between the release date being pushed back 2 years to prominent actor departures, things are quickly going downhill. Jonathan Majors was supposed to be the new big bad Marvel villain, Kang the Conqueror, for years to come, a main villain in the upcoming Avengers movies, already very involved in current Marvel projects. However, his personal life soon destroyed every plan set for his character. The situation was quite serious. Majors was accused of not acting very nice towards a romantic partner of his and was found guilty of 2 misdemeanor counts. Because of this, the actor was dropped by Marvel, brand deals, and other filming projects. This was the right course of action. There is no way around that. What Majors did was serious. It just happens to cause continuity problems in the MCU. The actor has already stepped into the shoes of Kang the Conqueror in multiple projects. There was even a post-credit scene where a bunch of Kang variants were shown, and they were all Jonathan Majors. Easy fix there, infinite versions of Kang. It would make sense that many of them would be Majors, but surely not all. That's believable. However, Secret Wars isn't the only Marvel flick affected by this situation. The Avengers team-up, originally slated to come before Secret Wars, was Avengers: The Kang Dynasty. With all this outside drama, there's rumors Marvel won't be making Kang Dynasty at all. Conflicting reports have hit the news, some saying Kang Dynasty isn't happening anymore at all, others claiming it will proceed with a different title, and some claiming it's going forward as planned, just without Majors' involvement. However, with a release date so far in the future, everything could flip on its head tomorrow. Originally, Kang Dynasty was set to release next year in May, with Secret Secret Wars coming in November. However, due to the strike and other factors, Kang Dynasty was pushed to May 2026 and Secret Wars to May 2027. Quite the jump, but it came in handy, more time for Marvel to figure out the Jonathan Majors mess. In the event that Marvel were to recast the character, it could prove to be successful. Marvel has recasted important characters before, sometimes with the recast being more loved than the original, like in the case of James Rhodes. Some Marvel fans have spoken up saying that it is probably a good thing Marvel is getting more time to work on the projects in between Endgame and the future Avengers films. One Reddit user pointed out that one reason why Endgame worked so well was because Marvel took over a decade on the development of the projects leading up to the end. The characters all got well-developed arcs in their movies or shows, and as a result, the payoff in Endgame was welcomed and celebrated. If Secret Wars happens on the original timeline, Marvel likely would have had to rush some news stories, hurting them in the long run. Now, Marvel can take their sweet time and in the meantime allow their employees more time to work on the necessary CGI and VFX elements. Massive side-eye to MODOK from Quantumania for that one. Marvel has been in some very hot water lately when it comes to VFX department. So much of their movies rely on CGI nowadays, yet it's come out that the treatment of the employees creating the magic isn't the greatest. Accused of being overly demanding, tough to please, overworking employees, and on top of that not paying enough, Marvel isn't looking too good. Hopefully, Jonathan Majors' departure hiccup will give Marvel the opportunity to allow VFX artists the room to create their best work. Jonathan Majors' departure from the MCU might be the most serious, but it definitely isn't the only one affecting the MCU's future. The core players of the MCU departing, like Steve Rogers, Tony Stark, Black Widow, their loss is being felt. They were the heart of the MCU for so long that it's hard to get used to the fact that they aren't around anymore, and fans are curious to see how this will affect the future films and how they adopt the comic source material, since, as we all know, they are heavily involved in the 616 timeline, and a hero's death in the comic rarely sticks. People have been calling for Marvel to bring that energy to the films. Many have been making strong cases online for Robert Downey Jr.'s Tony Stark to make his return, same with Chris Evans and Scarlett Johansson, pretty much anyone whose Marvel contract ended. It's no secret that Marvel films and TV shows have experienced a drop in viewers, which can be connected to a variety of factors, including a lack of fan favorite characters. Rumors of an RDJ return took off after his interview with Esquire dropped at the beginning of April, in which he confirmed he would happily return to the MCU. One quick comment and MCU fans were losing it. Not without reason, actors, even former ones, typically keep Marvel cards close to their chest, so RDJ blatantly stating that he would come back, that's pretty much the same as him actually confirming it. RDJ said the role of Tony Stark was an integral part of his DNA and that it chose him. He also told people to never bet against Feige because he'll always win. Fans are now betting that RDJ will make a triumphant MCU big screen return, and if he doesn't, well, that would probably make the movie a fail in many people's books. People have been creating theories left and right for how Tony Stark could return without interfering with his departure. Iron Man had one of the most heart-wrenching MCU character arc fulfilling departures it had ever seen. It's so beautiful, people are hoping Marvel never ruins it, so how are they proposing to bring back someone with an untouchable death? The most common solution is variants. Variants have become a big deal in the MCU as of late. Major examples include Spider-Man, No Way Home, and Loki. It would be easy to include an RDJ Tony Stark variant, leaving main Tony's story intact while bringing back a fan favorite character. Of course, there is also the potential that if the variant isn't introduced properly, messing up such a loved character could result in the movie flopping. But then, on the flip side, if enough fans start to expect to see RDJ's Iron Man and then don't, that could also become trouble for the franchise. Popular MCU leaker My Time to Shine Hello on Twitter has shared a fan-made poster of what they believe Secret Wars will look like. It features characters from across Marvel, including Hugh Jackman's Wolverine, possibly Spider-Verse's Miles Morales, how that will work I don't know, Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, Chris Evans' Johnny Storm, multiple Hulks, Venom, and literally so many more heroes. Though the poster might not be official and maybe even posted in jest, it definitely had people talking. Fan replies to this tweet seem to be in full support of the idea, many saying they are here for it or that they will love every minute of it. People seem to be convinced Secret Wars will be a major ensemble multiversal moment that I worry if Marvel doesn't end up delivering, it will cost them. Marvel heroes were all super involved in this. Of course, the universe was set to implode. Plot leaks have been coming out left and right for the movie, but many seem to be drawing in aspects of both the 1984 version and the 2015 version. For the most part, one thing stays consistent: there are going to be a ridiculous amount of characters active in this, possibly even more heroes than what we saw in Infinity War and Endgame. There is the potential to have all the heroes that Marvel will have debuted up until 2027, plus variants of them and past heroes. This could be super exciting and bring in billions of dollars the way Infinity War and Endgame did, or it could quickly dissolve into a confusing mess if not handled properly.
Number 10. Kang Evolution. Kang. The future seems uncertain for this major Avengers villain in the MCU, but I have a theory for what might happen should we want to keep the character as part of the narrative. However, when it comes to Kang, he has worn many faces across time, and it is possible that Kang could actually be, well, pretty much anyone, and that time could have changed his appearance. While we've seemingly established that variants basically have to look exactly like themselves, this doesn't always have to be the case. We could redefine sort of that rule. We could question that and just re-establish it so that it isn't so. This would open us up to keeping the Kang angle while potentially recasting if need be and having it all make sense. And friends, before I move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, be sure to click that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any good nerdy content. Number 9. New Avengers. The old Avengers are out and the new Avengers may be in. I think we'll see a completely new lineup of a team of recently introduced characters. In the comics, this team, which was editorially known as the New Avengers but in canon just went by the name Avengers, was made up of Luke Cage, Ronan, Bucky Barnes, Carol Danvers, Mockingbird, Spider-Man, Jessica Drew, Spider-Woman, and Wolverine. In the MCU, if we were to have our own team of New Avengers, I'd put forward a roster that featured Sorcerer Supreme Wong, Shang-Chi, Spider-Man, Captain Marvel, Sam Wilson's Captain America, White Vision, Moon Knight, and She-Hulk. Kind of a weird team, to be honest, but also definitely an interesting one. Number 8. Fantastic Four. The Fantastic Four were being written about only last month as if the project was pretty much cast. However, having gone back to take another look at some of those articles, it seems as though we aren't as close to having the main team cast as was first suspected. Honestly, I was skeptical when people started talking about the casting as though it was done. I was like, I feel like we're way far out, but if you say so. However, rumors have still been flying about in regards to Pedro Pascal being nearly cast as Reed Richards, depending on sort of his shooting schedule with other projects, and some other performers being nearly settled on in terms of other members of the first family. I wouldn't be surprised if we get at least a reference to them, if not a cameo of them even, in Avengers 5, maybe in the post-credits. Keep your eyes peeled for Easter eggs when we get there is all I'm gonna say, because I feel like Avengers 5 is gonna have lots of references to the Fantastic Four. Number 7. X-Men collide with the main continuity. For those who missed it, the X-Men were teased at during the post-credits scene of The Marvels. Here we saw Monica Rambeau after she was trapped in an alternate universe recovered by a variant seemingly of her mom, who is also a variant of Captain Marvel, it would seem, as she appears to be the hero binary, one of Captain Marvel's other mantles she has worn in the comics. For those that don't know, Carol, despite not being a mutant, was actually once a super close ally to the X-Men in the comics, even fighting alongside them for quite a while. Beast's Hank McCoy was also there to take and analyze Monica's readings, and it seems that she had been found and taken in by the X-Men in this alternate world. Well, what does this mean? Considering that Secret Wars is on the agenda and incursions were hinted at in Multiverse of Madness, I'm hoping the X-Men will come to the main continuity via their world colliding with the main MCU continuity. That's what makes the most sense given the information I have so far, but either way, it seems that Marvel wants to let us know that yes, the X-Men will be coming soon. Just how soon, we'll have to wait and see. But hopefully in Avengers 5, that would be really awesome. Number 6. White Vision joins the team. White Vision seems to be like a loose end that everyone at Marvel and Disney forgot existed, but I'm hoping that the MCU picks up this loose thread and does something with it soon. White Vision could be added to an Avengers team, maybe even the West Coast Avengers could show up, or perhaps he could be a sub-boss who is converted back into being good. I know that it's likely if we do see him, he'll be Avengers adjacent in some way, since that's where he originally sort of started out as regular Vision, or he might show up in Armor Wars. Either way, I'm hopeful that he will will return and not just be another missing piece of this honestly mess of an MCU puzzle. Number 5. Scarlet Witch will return. Scarlet Witch is one of my favorite characters in the comics and the MCU. I love her as both a hero and a villain personally. Just Wanda can do no wrong in my mind. But I was a little sad to see her go in Multiverse of Madness, especially when, based on everything that happened in WandaVision, you would think that Wanda would not have behaved quite so ruthlessly as she did in that movie. I mean, I know she wanted her children back at basically any cost, but to take them from their mother, which was basically a variant of her, seems a little out of character. I know the Darkhold was royally messing with her, which is how we justify that, but it felt like we were taking somewhat of a step backward when it came to her development as a character with everything we did in WandaVision. I was willing to let it slide because I love an evil Wanda, and honestly overall I did enjoy the movie, but at the same time it would be sad to me if this was actually the end of her story. While Elizabeth Olsen has said she's pretty much done with superhero movies for now, I'm honestly a little skeptical. I think if offered an acting challenge like she had with WandaVision, she might return to give the character a hopefully more heroic send-off. Or it might be possible if the X-Men do show up that both Wanda and Pietro could return via variants of themselves who are back to being mutants and are aligned with the Brotherhood like in the classic X-Men days. It sounds wild, but it would be delightful if something like that happened, at least for me. And that way, if Elizabeth Olsen wasn't interested, they could always potentially recast, because this version would be a variant, so it doesn't have to be the same actor. Number 4. Young Avengers. The Young Avengers is a team I have been hoping to see for quite some time in the MCU. It feels like we've been building to this since the days of WandaVision, which honestly feels like it was forever ago, but really only came out nearly 3 years ago. Though really 3 years in cinematic time really does feel like forever, doesn't it? Ever since I saw Billy and Tommy appear as Wanda's reality warp created children, I was wondering, will we get the Young Avengers, and if so, when? Since then, we've gotten a cameo of Eli Bradley in Disney Plus's streaming series Falcon and the Winter Soldier, as well as Kate Bishop being introduced in Hawkeye and America Chavez in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Additionally, we've also been introduced to 2 younger heroes as well, with Kamala Khan's Ms. Marvel appearing in her own show and The Marvels, and Black Widow's adopted younger sister Yelena Belova, known alternatively as the White Widow in the comics and the Black Widow in the MCU. Although neither of them have been part of the Young Avengers team in the comics. Still, based on the fact that Ms. Marvel appears at the end of the Marvels to recruit Kate Bishop to her own younger team of heroes, it's likely that we'll either be getting Young Avengers or the Champions in the MCU at some point. And maybe Avengers 5 will be that point. Maybe they'll be the new Avengers, the Young Avengers, or the Champions if that's the name we go with. I think Young Avengers makes more sense even if it is more of a Champions team. Number 3. Myrddin. Who is Myrddin? Well, we don't really know, but what we do know is he or she or they is a new major villain in Avengers comics. Nothing much has been established about them, but what we know is they were powerful enough to almost kill Kang off in the Timeless series. Myrddin wears a mask, so it seems likely to me that they will be revealed as someone we already know from the comics. Many of the signs from the comics so far seem to suggest that this might be Merlin in disguise. An alternate version of the name Myrddin, which is spelt a little bit differently, is one that Merlin has used before, and this villain seems to have an obsession with chess games, which is also something that we know about Merlin, seeing him fight against his enemies as such, both literally and metaphorically, which is also something Merlin has just really been known to do. So there are quite a few similarities here in the comics, not to mention that Merlin is often known to be a fan of disguises. The question is, could Myrddin be a replacement for Kang in the MCU, or could they somehow also be involved in that story, or at least the original story that we had for Avengers 5? I don't know. Sometimes the comics reflects the MCU or vice versa, so we'd have to wait and see. Number 2. Doctor Doom. What could happen if Kang was actually ditched instead in the MCU? If we abandon the entire plot, what are we left with? Some have theorized that instead we could see an even more iconic villain introduced in Kang's place. We're talking about Doctor Doom. Now, Doctor Doom coming in could be really cool, but I think for that to be the solution, we'd first perhaps need the Fantastic Four to at least be alluded to. I mean, Doom is a great villain overall, but I just can't see him being introduced first as an Avengers villain. I'd actually love to see the FF and the new Avengers team, whoever that ends up being, team up to take on beyond Doom. That could be a fun first story for the FF, a good way to bring them in, that might also allow us to introduce them without being so focused on, their origin story, which honestly, we've heard a bunch, and I don't even know how you do it in a modern era and make it make sense or make it super interesting. Number 1. Thanos. Another cool villain idea that some folks have is the return of Thanos. While Thanos is seemingly dead and gone, with variants being established as a thing through the Loki series and the TVA, this actually feels kind of more likely at this point. Also in the comics, we've seen Thanos come back from the dead before, and he's a villain we already know and love, so you just wouldn't have to introduce him to viewers, he could just be there. Plus, he delivers a bonus hit of nostalgia to fans of the old MCU days who miss that sense of familiarity, so it might be a good place for them to go if they want to play on that nostalgia factor.
Number 10. The Thunderbolts. There is a time in the comics where it looked like Earth had lost most of its heroes, and Baron Zemo saw this lull as the perfect time to organize a super team of his own. Although his crew, composed mostly of villains, pretended to be a force for good, they originally had evil intentions. The MCU Zemo, played by Daniel Bruhl, definitely has the intelligence and financial resources to pull together a Thunderbolts crew. Daniel Bruhl's Zemo has already been portrayed in a more sympathetic light in 2021's The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and the Thunderbolts movie may see him continue to seek redemption for his past by spearheading a team of would-be heroes, or anti-heroes, or even possibly villains. It's also been shown that Julia Louis-Dreyfus Contessa Valentina Allegra de Fontaine is a major character in the movie. We've seen Contessa appear in several Phase 4 post-credit scenes already, recruiting characters like Florence Pugh's Yelena Belova and Wyatt Russell's John Walker to her mysterious cause. Contessa may be forming the Thunderbolts in response to the dissolution of the Avengers, but given the character's often treacherous nature in the comics, it's easy to imagine Contessa doing something villainous. I'm just imagining an eventual team-on-team fight like in Civil War, instead of just having another big bad. Number 9. Nightmare. Originally hailing from the dream dimension, the demon known as Nightmare can imprison a being's astral form and torment them. There have been several hints of Nightmare lurking in the background. On Loki, Mobius appears to make reference to the villain's name, and although Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. might not be canon, it definitely introduced the concept of a dream dimension. Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness made a statement about how dreams are actually visions into alternate universe versions of yourself, and with dreams comes nightmares. Imagine if Nightmare had been manipulating the dreams of someone like the Scarlet Witch to make her go a little bonkers. Nightmare is one of Doctor Strange's oldest foes, and it makes sense that he would show up, but I'm not entirely convinced he would be an Avengers level threat. Number 8. Mephisto. On that note, the Marvel Cinematic Universe does feel like it's preparing itself to embrace the darker elements of its comic book counterparts, with projects such as Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness and Moon Knight out and about, and Blade on the way with the Black Knight semi-introduced, not to mention the Dweller in Darkness and Shang-Chi. The MCU is getting a darker side, and what's darker than some demons? And if we're talking demons, why not start with one a few of us thought was going to be showing up in the Loki show? Mephisto is the perfect villain to anchor that Hell on Earth conflict that seems to be coming for Doctor Strange and the other characters who also happen to be a part of the Midnight Suns, a team of mystically powered occult fighters. It would be a unique villain for the Avengers, or maybe an MCU Midnight Suns team to face. Number 7. Chthon. Last on the list of possible demons would have to be the Elder God Chthon. As the Earth's first black magician, he would make an excellent Doctor Strange villain, or even a mystical based threat like Mephisto or Nightmare. More than that though, he was the creator of the Darkhold, that dark magical book that first showed up in WandaVision and then more recently in the Multiverse of Madness, where it corrupted the Scarlet Witch. Funnily enough, something similar happened in the comics too, only the Darkhold corrupted Wanda for the express purpose of releasing Chthon into the world. In the Darkhold story, it is Wanda who does eventually defeat Chthon with the quote-unquote help of Doctor Doom. And given her recent transgressions in WandaVision and Multiverse of Madness, it might be a nice way for her to redeem her character. Maybe. Number 6. Kang the Conqueror. Jonathan Majors will portray the notable villain of Kang the Conqueror in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania for the first time outside of the Loki series. But there's no way a villain of this threat level will stop there. Kang's advanced tech, large intellect, and ability to time travel means he can make intricate plans to attack enemies before they even know what hit them. One great story for the MCU to draw upon is Kang War. Now many fans wondered why the Avengers did not simply go back in time and de-life Thanos as a baby baby in Avengers Endgame, as kind of a joke, but this story follows up on that idea, but with a villain that can combat it. Kang's retaliation by going around attacking baby versions of the Avengers and erasing them from existence is an even darker version of the blip. Sam Wilson, Jane Foster, Peter Parker, and the daughter of Hank Pym and Vision are all members of the current Avengers roster and all play a part in the story. In addition to new faces we know are coming like the Black Knight. Not only do the heroes match up, but it also provides an epic and compelling story about Kang, properly demonstrating the power that Kang wields while showing his influence on history. Number 5. Doctor Doom. Once Marvel announced a Fantastic Four film was on the horizon, they pretty much confirmed that we would see Doctor Doom, one of the most famous supervillains in Marvel's lineup. It's incredibly unlikely that they'd leave him out of the new adaptation. Although Doctor Doom was introduced as a Fantastic Four foe, he has the resources and power, both magical and technological, to take on the current MCU Avengers, easily. We can also easily see Earth's mightiest heroes meeting the MCU's Doom within the next few years. There's even the possibility of Doom becoming the next big bad of the MCU. Kevin Feige has been dropping some not so subtle hints about the possibility of Secret Wars taking place within the MCU, and no matter which version they adapt, Doctor Doom is a crucial character in all those stories. Personally, I hope it's the 2015 version, as we have already heard mention of the incursions from Reed Richards, and with the sacred timeline going into complete upheaval, it's possible that could be an incursion starting event. Just give me God Emperor Doom already! Number 4. Magneto. It's hard to imagine Marvel introducing the X-Men into the MCU without also introducing Charles Xavier's number one frenemy, Magneto. Magneto is such a key and imposing villain in the comics. He has been portrayed twice on the screen, with Michael Fassbender and Ian McKellen killing it both times. Furthermore than just the popularity of the character and the necessity for him to appear opposing the mutants, some insider gossip and possible rumors suggest that Magneto will be teaming up with none other than Doctor Doom in the 5th phase of Marvel. And not only does that completely make sense, it's also terribly cool to imagine. There isn't much to say, because if the MCU is getting mutants, this is kind of a no-brainer. Number 3. Galactus. In Eternals, we learn that unborn Celestials are planted inside planets across the universe, waiting for intelligent life to reach a point in which those Celestials can use that energy to be born, destroy said planet, and begin creating another sun that will power another galaxy in the place of the one destroyed. Being an ancient universe entity, Galactus is an all-powerful cosmic being that acts as a balance of power in the current universe. He does this by devouring planets throughout the cosmos as a source of energy to stay alive. It is more likely than not that Arishem the Judge, a Celestial, considers the death of a baby Celestial as a punishable offense. Galactus could be in the MCU as a tool the Celestials use to devour planets. Galactus often prides himself as a force of balance in the universe, and with Earth being such a powerhouse planet in the cosmos, its failed emergence is likely to upset the balance of things. Or, what if Galactus was actually hunting planets with the immense amount of energy a celestial seed would provide? This cosmic being is known for having a huge appetite that can only be satisfied by consuming the energy of planets. With certain planets, including Earth, hosting a celestial seed inside of them, a Herald of Galactus could view it as a great source of energy to keep Galactus fed. And that's not even mentioning the Fantastic Four. They're also famous for doing battle with Galactus. He also shares a connection with another famous Marvel character. There are lots of reasons he could show up. Number 2. Apocalypse. When we were talking about Kang, we talked about how he traveled through history. Well, speaking of characters who had roles in history, one of Kang's time-displaced alternates is called Rama-Tut, who was a pharaoh in ancient Egypt, and he had a bit of a backstory that involved another major villain, the ancient proto-mutant Apocalypse. More than his connection to Kang and the mutants, Apocalypse is also empowered with ancient celestial technology, and the Celestials have had more than a few mentions throughout the MCU, with a major role in the Eternals movie. Also, this major villain is arguably as powerful, if not possibly more powerful, than Thanos in different ways. Actually, speaking of Thanos, Apocalypse may be a bit too much like the Big Chin in terms of stature and the fact that he has his Horsemen of the Apocalypse like Thanos has the Black Order, but he has so much more to offer than that. I also think we gotta get a live-action redemption for this villain after the kind of bad Age of Apocalypse X-Men movie from 2016, but that's just my opinion. Number 1. The Beyonder. The original Secret Wars series, initiated by Marvel Comics in the 80s was spearheaded by a cosmic entity known as the Beyonder, who observed the multiversal heroes and villains and, wishing to know more about human nature and conflict, transported them to an alternate world he created known as Battle World, made out of a mishmash of parts of Earth and other planets in the galaxy. The Beyonder brought together Marvel superheroes and villains onto this world, such as the Avengers, the Fantastic Four, the X-Men, and Spider-Man, including antagonists Dr. Octopus, Kang the Conqueror, and most importantly, Molecule Man and Dr. Doom. The threat of multiversal incursions that played a large part in the 2015 Secret Wars has already been established in 2022's Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, and we can strongly suspect Dr. Doom will be introduced very soon. After Thanos, the MCU needs a main villain with another more original motive. The Beyonder's desire to understand human nature allows for interesting narrative possibilities and philosophical discussions. Why conflict is inevitable, why people always want to achieve something more, and why imperfection makes life worth living are some of the themes the culmination of the MCU's Phase 5 could tackle. Not to mention, Beyonder is leagues and bounds beyond the power of Thanos.
At number 10, we have a pretty obvious one, Sam Wilson's Captain America. We've already had Falcon as part of the Avengers in the classic films, but this time around we should expect to see him joining the team honing the Captain America mantle. At the end of Endgame, we witnessed Steve Rogers hand off the title to Sam Wilson, and then we get a full Captain America series with Sam Wilson in the title role. So it definitely won't come as a surprise if we see this version of Cap leading the Avengers into a new phase of films in the 6th phase of the MCU. At number 9, we have Blue Marvel. Unlike the previous entry, this is a much less plausible guess, but boy would it be cool to see. I mean, if I'm being honest, I'm pretty shocked that they haven't teased anything for Blue Marvel thus far, even just an appearance, considering he's such a powerful hero with such a cool backstory, and in the comics he currently ranks as one of the most powerful Avengers of all time, even though his run was very short. But unless they bring him into other character storylines in the upcoming Phase 5 projects, it's gonna be hard to imagine how Blue Marvel will build enough hype to join the Avengers down the line. But it's still possible, so Blue Marvel fans, I'll pray with you. At number 8 is Namor. Considering that Namor is currently one of the Avengers in the comics, I feel pretty confident that we'll be seeing him join them during the Phase 5 rollout. Now, I know he's been announced as the villain in Wakanda Forever, but I really think they'd be making a mistake if they didn't find a way to work him into the Avengers anyway. To be fair, Namor has always been on the fence of moral alignment anyway in the comics, so I could easily see him acting as the villain in the new Black Panther film, and then maybe finding some heroic grounds at the end. I mean, it just has to happen. He's just too big of a character in the comics to just have him show up as a one-off villain and then take a hike. At number 7, we have Hercules. This is a very similar situation to Namor because he's being teased as a new villain in the end of Thor: Love and Thunder. But this is actually similar to the comics in that he does initially appear as a counterpart to Thor before turning to good. In fact, Hercules goes back and forth as an antagonistic force in the comics even after bouts of heroism. So, with the Avengers films coming up, it would make sense that Hercules would do the same thing in whatever Phase 5 project he appears in. With Zeus sending Herc off to hunt down Thor after the events of Love and Thunder, I could see a big confrontation going down, but I could also see it ending in some kind of reconciliation between the two characters and therefore with the rest of the Avengers as well. At number 6 is Blade. This is one that I think will definitely happen, mainly because Blade is a current member of the Avengers in the comics and also because we're expecting to see a new Blade film coming out in 2023 featuring Mahershala Ali in the leading role. And it's about time too. Blade did get a movie back in the 90s, but it wasn't part of the current MCU continuity. So to see the character making a comeback in Phase 5 of the MCU is very exciting for fans of the character. And it's going to be hard to imagine that they don't introduce the character to the Avengers at the end of the movie. Throw a comment down below if you're excited to see Blade's new appearances in the upcoming phases. At number 5, we have Ms. Marvel. I have a feeling this one will be more of a light introduction, as in I don't think the character will spend a long time on the team or act in a major role at first, but I think she'll definitely join in some capacity. In the comics, Mrs. Marvel joins the Avengers briefly and sort of takes over Peter Parker's role as the younger, wide-eyed pupil to the rest of the team. With her new show having dropped earlier this year and the new movie The Marvels announced for Phase 5, there's a really good chance we'll see the character gain enough hype and get an introduction to the team. maybe even at the end of the Marvels movie. At number 4 we have Cersei. During Phase 4 we saw the Eternals get their introduction into the MCU. And even though it was from this current phase, it gave us the backstories of many of these ancient heroes who can now be brought back into any upcoming story without much effort. And out of all the Eternals, only a couple of them have ever had significant runs as part of the Avengers, and that would be Gilgamesh and Cersei. Star Fox also joined the Avengers in the comics, but he wasn't featured in the movie. But out of these two heroes, Cersei was featured more prominently in the Eternals movie as well as in the comics as an Avenger, so my bet would be on her joining the team instead of Gilgamesh, unless the MCU wants to abandon the comics in that regard. The only reason why I couldn't see her getting an introduction to the team in the MCU is that she may be too overpowered, with Captain Marvel also being on the team. But I still think it would be a missed opportunity not to bring Cersei or at least one of the Eternals into the fold in some capacity regardless. At number 3 is Shang-Chi. This one's pretty obvious, and I couldn't be more happy about that fact. It's fair to say that Shang-Chi's introduction to the MCU was a great one and offered the character a dignified portrayal just in time for these new Avengers movies to be rolled out in Phase 6. And with the character having served as a member of the Avengers in the comics, it makes a lot of sense that he'd join in the MCU as well. Perhaps he'll even get another appearance to solidify his place on the team in, say, an upcoming Spider-Man movie? I only say that because, as many of you know, Shang-Chi is responsible for training Peter Parker in martial arts in the comics, so I could see that thread being worked into the MCU in some capacity during Phase 5. Either way, Shang-Chi is an insanely powerful hero who has a history with the Avengers, so we should almost definitely see him joining the team sometime in the upcoming movies. At number 2 we have She-Hulk. This is another entry that I would really bet on. Unless the character's new series is a total bomb, and everyone hates the MCU portrayal of She-Hulk, I would put 100% certainty that we'll be seeing her as part of the Avengers in the new movies. She-Hulk has been a significant member of the Avengers in the comics and has notably appeared in the Secret Invasion and Secret Wars storylines. So, to see her getting a whole series to herself, and then to see that Secret Invasion and Secret Wars will be getting their own projects, it just strikes me as a confirmation that She-Hulk will most definitely find her place as part of the Avengers. And we can probably bet that her introduction might come during Phase 5 in the Secret Wars storyline, if not in her own series first. At number 1 we have the one and only Wolverine. I put him at the top spot not because I'm 100% sure that he'll join the Avengers, but because I 100% hope he will. Much like many of you, I've been waiting for the X-Men to be given a proper appearance in the MCU, and with Secret Wars coming up, I feel like this would be a perfect opportunity for the team to meet a few of the X-Men and hopefully even recruit Wolverine as one of their own. It may be a bit far-fetched to think that the MCU would have time in Phase 5 to introduce the X-Men and then add Wolverine to the Avengers all in one go, but if not now, then when, Marvel? We saw what you did there in Ms. Marvel when Bruno suggests that Ms. Marvel might be a mutant, but until I see Wolverine's claw marks on the side of a building in a post-credits sequence, I won't be satisfied. We need X-Men in the MCU, and if you really want to properly integrate them into the movies, you can go right ahead and give Wolverine a contract with the Avengers while you're at it.
Coming in at number 10, X-Men collab. The debut of the X-Men to the MCU was one of the biggest rumors circulating around Avengers 5. This comes as the result of Disney purchasing Fox, who previously owned the rights for a whopping $66 billion. Ooh, that's a lot of money. We're hoping that these characters' introductions will be handled with absolute care, considering fans already know and love the X-Men series. With Phase 5 being so far into the future, this should give the company the time it needs to properly weave the storylines. With the loss of so many great characters from the last Avengers movie, this could be a terrific option to, spice things up a little bit. Number 9, Spider-Man hanging on. With Sony still holding on to the rights of Spider-Man, it's always a possibility they could pull that plug at any moment. Although, have hope. Deals have been made in the past for Spider-Man to be included into the MCU, and his standalone film Homecoming was a smash hit that brought back our friendly neighborhood Spider. And with Phase 5 far enough into the future as production stands, there's still time for Marvel and Sony to work out a deal to have Spidey come back for this one. I mean, let's hope. Number 8, new villains. With every Marvel movie, a hero doesn't have ambition to act unless he's met with an equally powerful villain. Avengers 5 will be no different. Here's some of those villains that we're hoping for. First things first, we know that villains in Captain Marvel, set to be released in 2019, will be the Skrulls, who are an alien race of shapeshifters that will hopefully set up Secret Invasion. Well, most likely we'll see these alien baddie storyline played out through Phase 4, with Phase 5 bringing us the aftermath of the battle between the Avengers and the Skrulls. That being said, a villain we would all enjoy seeing for Avengers 5 has to be Doctor Doom. With Marvel taking full advantage of merging with the X-Men and perhaps Fantastic Four, this would include Doctor Doom as well, and it would also include him as a potential replacement for Thanos. Once that's all said and done though, I mean, who knows? Even though Doctor Doom's main nemesis is the Fantastic Four, we have seen Doctor Doom have run-ins with the likes of Spider-Man and Black Panther. Doctor Doom, I mean, what an awesome antagonist that would be. Number 7, more Ryan Reynolds. That's right, Deadpool fanatics, we have rumors that Deadpool will be included as well. If Marvel introduces the X-Men, they have the ability to wipe that slate clean and pretty much do whatever they want with the characters. Deadpool was a box office smash hit when it came to be released in 2016. Better believe Marvel was paying attention. Even though Disney is involved, let's hope we get to keep the lovable R-rated version of Deadpool. Number 6, new faces. As I mentioned before, we're going to possibly see the integration of new faces into the MCU. This creates a fresh start for Phase 5, especially with some of the actors looking towards retirement. We could even see some young faces joining the franchise and replacing some of the heroes we love. Speculation has even assumed that Bucky would possibly take on the role of Captain America, but although keeping the current cast would be okay with fans, it kind of limits storylines because we already know so much regarding the core cast of these characters. Let's hope this rumor is true and we see the birth of some new heavy hitters for Marvel. Number 5, the Nova Corps. Back in 2014, we were first introduced to the Nova Corps in Guardians of the Galaxy. We didn't see a lot from the Nova Corps, but what we do know is that they're a type of space force in charge of policing and protection over the Andromeda Galaxy and Earth. If we see more of the Nova Corps in Avengers 5, we could get an introduction to one of their most notable members, Nova, also known as Richard Rider. In the comics, Nova was the one to help kind of bring Star-Lord and Guardians of the Galaxy all together, and with crossovers already in this rumor mill, I mean, that seems plausible. All of this takes place post-Thanos. We may see a whole new Nova Corps, just searching for members from across the galaxy. Number 4, the Supernatural. We've already had our fill of supernatural beings from Thor, the Scarlet Witch, and Doctor Strange with his ties to the Infinity Stones, but if Marvel so chooses, they have a wide selection of supernatural beings they could introduce as well. Especially Ghost Rider, who was given an introduction into the MCU by way of their TV series Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. These new supernatural beings may come to a shock to some of the human characters like Tony Stark, but would provide Marvel with a ton of new storylines to play with. That's why at number 3 we have TV meets the movies. As I said before, these rumors are full of crossovers. We have mentions of new characters on the TV series as well as the need for some fresh faces. This could mean that we see the beloved characters from Marvel's TV series taken to the big screen for Phase 5. Originally, the TV series was supposed to follow the aftermath of some of Marvel's biggest films, but it's becoming increasingly difficult to coordinate TV, Netflix, and the movies. Marvel is apparently holding off on the Netflix Defenders appearing in their films until it really matters, i.e. Phase 5, where hopefully we'll get to see an ultimate team-up movie. I mean, I'm excited. Number 2, alternate universes. With the ending of Infinity War, fans are speculating even more of the possibility that we'll see the use of alternate universes for Phase 5. With Doctor Strange giving us our first look into the possibility of multiple universes, just imagine the interference this will cause when further explored in the Avengers 5 movie. This would also lend a help to kind of tie up a lot of loose ends left by Infinity War and give life to those supernatural beings I mentioned before. Lastly, at number 1, we have Marvel vs. DC. This is one rumor that a lot of fans don't think would ever be possible because Marvel and DCEU are rivals. With Marvel taking the lead in the market, they're also exhausting a lot of their key characters, and even though it wouldn't be smart to help your competitors, it could be an incredible team up, one time only, for this monumental film. I mean, if Marvel was able to pull off the first Avengers and work out all those kinks, it could mean this is a possibility. Plus, what would be the absolute craziest way to end it all than a Marvel vs. DC battle? That would propel both companies into multiple opportunities to do more standalone films and basically creating an even bigger money-making machine between the two.